when I started Mountain 46, I mean, it was a huge risk. I was leaving a very comfortable, very well paying job with benefits. But, looking back at my experience and understanding how, life, I mean, it sounds so cliche to say, but like how life is so short and we only have one shot at it. For me, the risk was worth it, and I had to tell myself there is a plan B. I can always go do the corporate thing again. I can always go get another job. I can work retail or whatever I have to do to pay the bills. But if I can make this work and if I can live that life that I really want to live, it's totally worth that risk.
I am so excited to have my good friend Nicole DeGrasse here to share her heart around the important work that she's doing with supporting moms who are maybe in the corporate grind and want to leave the 9 to 5 and start their own business, specifically when it comes to being a virtual assistant. So Nicole, I am so excited to hear your perspective and all of the incredible ways that you support working moms and busy moms in everything that they do day to day. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I know we've been talking about it for weeks. So the fact that it's here, I'm so excited.
So excited. So excited. I would love to start with just your background and hearing a little more about your specific experience. You run Mountain 46. You also have an online course where you encourage moms to build their own virtual assistants businesses. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your journey. Like, what was the biggest thing that you found was challenging when you wanted to kind of potentially make this change from what you were doing to what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up normal childhood, went to college because I thought that's what I had to do, and graduated college knowing not what I was going to do. I did get my degree in business administration. Out of college, went through a bunch of different corporate positions, started in like a daycare, and then went to, I think I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car as a rental specialist, and then an executive assistant, and then so on and so forth. And so like 10 plus years in corporate, and I landed in a project management position with a compliance company. And at that point in my life, I was like in my early 30s. I was still single, but I had also been a serial entrepreneur. I had started a photography business. I was doing a party planning business with my sisters and mom, which was a lot of fun. And I had done a few different MLMs, multi-level marketing companies. So I knew a lot about business, and I knew I just really enjoyed it. But I felt like stuck in this corporate kind of world, climbing the corporate ladder. And I didn't really know where I was going. But I had met my boyfriend, who happened to live 2.5 hours north of me. And when we decided to move in together, I had to go to my corporate position and pretty much give them an ultimatum of like, you're going to let me work remote or I'm going to quit, because I'm not going to have a 2.5 hour commute each way every day. That's just, ridiculous. So they did end up letting me work remotely. And about a month after moving in with my boyfriend, he had an episode of heart failure in the middle of the night. He went into VFib. I don't even remember ventricular, whatever. Basically his heart was beating so fast that like no blood was going through. So I woke up to that in the middle of the night, had to call 911, which now I can look back and laugh at, but like I called from a landline phone because I couldn't unlock any of our cell phones because in a panic state. And they're like, what's your address? And I'm like, I don't even know where I live.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, his mom and stepdad lived in the apartment above us. So like I ran upstairs to get them, and his mom got on the phone with, 911, and his stepfather started doing CPR. And shortly after, I had to like relieve him of that because it's very strenuous to do. I would hope nobody ever has to do CPR on the loved one because it is a very interesting situation and it's very traumatic. But you do what you got to do, right? So like, I remember the feeling of the EMT tapping me on the shoulder of just like, oh my God, I can step back and let, a professional take care of, I thought was like my dying boyfriend on the floor.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the bathroom on the phone with my mom, watching his feet like jump off the ground every time they defibrillated him. And I was just like, it was just a wild scenario and situation. And he got brought to the local hospital, airlifted to bigger medical facility 2.5 hours away. And I remember driving down by myself thinking like, oh, I don't even know what I'm going into. And then He was in a hypothermic coma for about 36 hours, I think. It took him about 12 hours to come out of it. And I remember the nurses telling me that he might not even have like memory of who I was, which was scary, but like I didn't care because he was alive, you know? And just that whole situation. And then having to call my job and my manager and telling her, you know, I am in the hospital with my boyfriend who just died essentially. And she was like, oh, you know, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't help you with your work. I'll have to talk to your coworker. And just like the lack of compassion and empathy for like what I was going through. I had to fight for my PTO to like be by my husband, well, my husband now, my boyfriend at the time's side. It was just so eye-opening to the lack of, like I said, compassion and understanding, and even like knowing who I was or, you know, what my life was just very eye-opening. And so 10 days later, we were driving home. He, you know, is fine now. They never figured out what happened. It was just kind of an electrical short is what they kind of tell us. And driving up through New York, through the Adirondack Mountains of where we used to live in Lake Placid, I remember very vividly, like looking around at the white birch trees with the bright orange, yellow leaves and thinking to myself, like, gosh, life is never going to be the same. Like I will never be able to like get rid of that experience in my brain. And I was grateful that he was alive, and we went through some hard times, but it was shortly after that I was like, I don't want to work for somebody who doesn't care about me and my family anymore. And I heard a podcast. It was like one of Jenna Kutcher's actually very first podcasts episodes about being a virtual assistant. And it just like, it was like an alarm in my head. Like, yep, this is exactly what I need to be doing. I know that I'm really good at a certain skill set, and I know that I can help other people. I grew up actually, my parents had a remodeling business. So I like grew up in the entrepreneurial world. And so I was like, yeah, this makes sense. And so I talked to my boyfriend at the time, and he's totally entrepreneurial too. He's like, yeah, go for it. Like, what do we have to lose? So I did, and I started my business, and, you know, within 3 or 4 months, I quit my corporate job. Within 8 months, I hit 6 figures, and I haven't looked back since. And it's just been growing. And that's when Mountain 46 started. I grew the agency, and then just recently decided, well, a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to build a course to teach other moms how to do the same thing, step away from corporate and start something that aligned with values, aligned with, you know, who they wanted to be working with, what they wanted to be doing. So they weren't just punching a clock and getting a paycheck. Like, I feel like there's way more to life than that. And so I developed this course to teach, you know, working moms how to start their business from home and eventually, hopefully, quit corporate and live life on their own terms, you know, based on their own values.
So good, Nicole. I love how you just talk about the perspective shift you had through that really profound experience. And I know that all of us, one way or another, have those little things that happen inside of our lives. And I shouldn't even say little. I mean, they're profound. They're things that really, truly change not only our perspective, but the trajectory of maybe what we're doing or what we thought meant we were successful or we thought we needed to do. And I love how you have just really taken this profound situation in your life and you've let it really change how you want to show up, not only in your day-to-day in your work, but also in your family and really being present in your family. So I'd love to talk a little bit, Nicole, about just kind of this concept of giving yourself permission to do that. And I know women oftentimes struggle with this idea of pursuing a career or pursuing a business on top of also being a mom and a wife and things like that. I'd love for you to maybe talk about when you were going through that and when you kind of made this decision to pivot and do more of your own thing. You know, how did you manage feelings and emotions inside that? And what were some of the things that you really had to work through, maybe when it comes to guilt or maybe when it comes to uncertainty and things along those lines?
Yeah. So when I started Mountain 46, it was a huge risk. I was leaving a very comfortable, very well-paying job with benefits. But, you know, looking back at my experience and understanding how, you know, life, I mean, it sounds so cliche to say, but like how life is so short and we only have one shot at it. For me, the risk was worth it, you know, and I had to tell myself, and it's funny because my husband and I have just been having this conversation again, but like I had to tell myself, there is a plan B. You know, I can always go do the corporate thing again. I can always go get another job. I can, work retail or whatever I have to do to pay the bills. But if I can make this work and if I can live that life that I really want to live, it's totally worth that risk. So just for me, it was just putting all of it in perspective of at the end of the day, what really matters to me. And what really mattered to me was my family and my time and where I was spending that and how I felt inside. Like, am I doing good work? Am I doing things that are going to serve this world in a better way? And I just felt that moving in this direction, that's what I was doing, is I was moving in a direction towards things that aligned with my personal values. And I just care about people. And it's hard when when I feel like people don't care about me. And that's kind of where I was in the whole corporate world. But, ever since then, and like growing my business and growing my family, I do struggle with a lot of those feelings of like, where's the priority here? Is it being a mom? Is it being a boss? Is it being a wife? And I think it's a constant, I don't want to say struggle, but it's a constant challenge that I face every single day. And it's sometimes the priorities shift and sometimes they reverse order. And I'm not saying that my kids and my family are never top priority, but sometimes, doing the things that bring me joy and make me happy in turn is going to benefit my family. So it's just putting all of that into perspective.
Putting all of that into perspective. I think you hit the nail on the head with this idea of how it's always kind of a little bit of an ebb and flow. Like there's no such thing as true balance. And there's no such thing as every bucket being totally full all at the same time. Like there's always going to be this kind of deciphering between where do I need to focus time and energy based on the different levels of things that are going on in your day to day. I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Nicole, about boundaries and just kind of this concept of how do you really in your day to day, maybe it comes down to habits, maybe it comes down to, different practices and things like that you put into your day or into your regimen. Like how do you really set up boundaries so you at least feel some level of quote unquote balance to make sure that you're really showing up in the different facets of your life in the way that really feels good to you?
And it goes back to it ebbs and it flows and it changes, but I do try to time block my day so that when my kids are at school, I am focused on working. Now, I do have my flex Friday. I've set up my calendar and my schedule so I have a flex Friday. So like Friday mornings, I can do the laundry, I can do the dishes, I can catch up on housework, so that I'm not doing that stuff over the weekend. But it's setting up that schedule and trying to stick to it, but also knowing that if I don't, it's okay.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the whole perspective thing, because at the end of the day, if my kids are fed and happy and playing, and if my business is still moving forward, if my relationship with my husband is still moving forward, whether sometimes we only have like a 10-minute conversation that day. But if I feel like we're all in a good place, no matter what that looked like, that is balance for me. But setting the boundaries of this is my work time, this is my family time. Sometimes they overlap and that's okay. But I try very hard to keep them in their own times of the day. Like even like yesterday, my daughter was like, come sit with me and write Valentine's with me. I was like, I would love to, and I will. When the clock says 5:00, I'm all yours. Right. And that was hard, but I do have to get things done. But I also find that my kids are going to respect me if I set certain boundaries, and I'm not just always there at their beck and call. So setting boundaries, setting expectations is also important for my kids and my husband and my clients. Understanding when they have my availability. Or my attention is important.
Yeah. So that overall communication, it sounds like, is what you focus on most when you're communicating boundaries and expectations. And I love how you talked a little bit about just how your kids view you in a working role and what that essentially means. related to what they think of you or how they look up to you or how they respect you. And I think for moms especially, like, and women especially, when we are playing different roles in the home, it can be so valuable for our kids to see us also working on things that fill our cup, or also serving other people in our jobs and in our businesses. And so I love how you just talked about that overarching idea of communication and just how important that is when you're setting boundaries and when you're really trying to figure out how do you get into this place of ebbing and flowing throughout the different facets of your life. So I love that, Nicole.
And sometimes our kids will bring us back to reality sometimes and remind us of priority. Yeah. And just like the small things that they say, you're like, you're right. Like I can step away from this for a few minutes and spend some time with you. So it's also listening to like what's going on around you and keeping things into perspective. I guess it's going to be my word of the day, but it's really all about that.
Yeah. And your opening story of your journey is like, that is such a huge perspective shifter. And I know for so many women, we have these moments where we have this massive perspective shift. And it's almost like this self-discovery where we have to kind of go inward and really assess what does matter most and what do we want to maybe do to change up our time or change up where we're working or how we're working in order to really continue to show up in a way that feels good from the inside out for our families and for our jobs and so much more. So I love what you're sharing, Nicole. I'd love to talk a little bit more about this idea of outsourcing and delegating. I know obviously as a virtual assistant and you are helping other moms build VA businesses, this idea of outsourcing and delegating is a huge piece to the work you do. And I know for women, I'm one of them. I sometimes get into my head about how do I delegate? Where do I delegate? What is the best route to outsource? Like, how do I go through a process to figure out what I need? I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, not only from a VA standpoint, but also from a mom standpoint. And how do you really decipher, the value of outsourcing and delegating tasks in your home or in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So business and in home life and personal life and being a mom, they all relate to each other. But in terms of business, the way I see it is if I can pay somebody less money than what I value my hour at to do a task, then I want to outsource that task. Yeah. Because as a business owner, my highest priority are the high level things that are going to build and grow my business. Now, do those low level things help grow my business? 100%. But if someone else can do it for me, if I don't have to be doing it myself, then I want somebody else to be doing it so that I can focus on the high level growth aspect of it. When it comes to home life, if it's going to help with my mental health, I'm going to outsource it. And I think you and I have had this discussion before, but one of the things I personally outsource is I have my home cleaned twice a month. I have someone come in and they don't pick up stuff, but they clean. They clean my bathroom and they clean my kitchen. And for me, that was incredibly helpful for my mental health because it alleviated some of that mom guilt for me of like, gosh, I can't keep this house going. Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I always keep in mind, especially with outsourcing, because going on a little tangent here, but the business that my parents owned was a remodeling business. So I grew up learning how to use power tools and build things and do all of the things. And so one of the quotes that I try to tell myself all the time is just because I can doesn't mean I need to or should, because I need to use my energy in the best possible way and use my skills and my talents or whatever that may be. Now, do I paint my walls sometimes? Sure. But do I climb on ladders doing drywall? Probably not. Can I? Sure. But do I want to or do I need to? No. And it's the same thing in my business. Can I create graphics and social media posts? Sure. Is it the best use of my time and skills? Probably not. There's probably somebody out there who has a higher capacity or skill set to do that. And if I can pay them whatever to do it and take that time off my plate or put that time back onto my plate, then that's where I'm going to outsource. So I try to keep that in mind of like, where is my energy and my time and my skills best used, and at home as well. Like I don't need to be doing all of the things. And I had to let go of that expectation of like, I had to be doing all the things because I was the mom, right? Yeah. I feel like as a mom, we feel like we have to do all the things to be a perfect mom. I think the expectations that people set out there are a little, outrageous. Like, I don't think as
Yeah,
a mom,
I was
you
going
have
to say
to be doing
outrageous. I was going
all
to
the
say
things.
outrageous. Yeah.
We don't have to be a boss and the best perfect mom and be doing crafts and be baking in dresses. Like, and I don't say that in a way to offend anybody, but like, that will never be me. And I have to be okay with that. That doesn't mean that my kids aren't living their best life. It doesn't mean that I'm not living my best life. It just means that, my joy is found in different ways.
Love that. Your joy is found in what feels good to you. And I think so often, especially in a world where we're so connected, which is a gift, but it's also very overwhelming, we can quickly become, in comparison mode, or I'm not doing enough, or I need to be doing this, or my kids don't have that experience, or whatever it is. And it's so important to reflect inward and just really get into, but what fills your cup and what brings you joy? And what really matters most to you and your family unit, and the way that you want to show up in your day to day, and the way that you want to work, and all of those things, like giving yourself that permission to constantly go back inward. I love that. It's so important. So important. Nicole, I'd love for you to maybe speak to the mom who's listening to this, who's like, you know what? I really relate to Nicole's story. I can see myself in some of the things she's sharing. I've also had a profound incident in my life where my perspective has greatly changed. I'm working in some capacity in a way that isn't fulfilling, whether that's 9 to 5 at corporate or 9 to 5, in something else. And they want to make a change. They want to somehow make a pivot into crafting more of their own working environment and really start to maybe become their own boss or start their own business. What would you say to that mom as far as like the first step she could take towards more flexibility and freedom for herself and her family?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is you are 100% capable of making a change, and only you can decide if that change is going to be, a step that you can take. But the first thing I would say is to look at what you've been doing, however long you've been doing it. Look at the different roles that you have been in, and whether that's corporate or, you're a PTA mom, or you're a homeroom mom, or you're a Girl Scout leader, or whatever it is, you have an existing skill set that could be very beneficial to lots of people out there. There are millions and millions and millions of small businesses in this country alone, and a lot of them are solopreneurs. And so they're doing all of the things all by themselves. And so if you could help them with any one specific task, you could be wildly successful as a virtual assistant, or, an online business manager, or some kind of remote assistance to a small business. So just identifying that you already have a skill set, things, I think a lot of times we get stuck in this rut of like, I've been doing this job forever. I don't know how to do what she's doing. I don't know how to run a business. When you're getting started, you don't need to necessarily know how to run a business. You just need to know how to do something well. And what I teach in my course is how to build a business around that one thing that you do well. Maybe it's 5 things, but like you just have to start with one thing. And so just bringing it really back down to the simple aspect of you are capable and you have a skill set that is valuable to somebody, somewhere. Identifying that.
That's such good reminder for all of us, because I know even for me as a mom, like I'm a solopreneur, but I've been a mom for 13 and a half years. And in the beginning of my motherhood journey, like I really had these moments where I felt like I had lost my skill sets. And I was working in corporate and I was doing all kinds of things before I became a mom. And it can be very real to get into your head and say, like, I'm not sure I can do XYZ, or I'm not sure I can learn how to do what they need. And I love that you're just reminding us as women to understand that we really do have a lot of valuable skill sets that translate into all kinds of different levels of work. And it's so important to really validate that and celebrate that in ourselves, rather than feeling like we can't do what somebody may need to do inside something like a virtual assistant business and more, because translated skills are a real thing. And I love how you're speaking to that. So
yeah, and just understanding that like you're also capable of learning.
Yeah.
And because I do talk to a lot of people and they're like, there's so much tech out there. Do I need to know all this tech? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like if you saw the website that I started my business with, like I cringe at it. And I'm like, I can't believe like I grew a real successful business with this website. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It's great
Right.
to have. And again, we teach about it in the course, but like, it's not about that. It's about the skill set that you have and the value that you can bring.
So good. Let's dive in and talk a little more about your course and just what you do with like Mountain 46 and the work you do. So I know you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation just how you've created this course that encourages moms or empowers moms to start their own virtual assistant businesses. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that all entails and how someone like a listener or some other woman that comes across this podcast could get in touch with you and learn more about how she can start to maybe create her own VA business.
Yeah, absolutely. So my course was designed to be, a step-by-step guide of how to build the business side of it. We don't teach you the skills because I'm convinced that you already have a skill set that we can build a business around. So it's an 8-module course with 2 bonus modules. We talk about, identifying that skill set, crafting your services around that skill set, and also your personal values. We're going to talk about branding your business. So creating that presence, again, it all kind of revolves around your values. And so we want that to reflect in your branding. Your branding is your logo, your presence, how you present yourself online, in person, through proposals, invoices. We're going to talk about your website, the type of copy that's going to be important to convert potential clients to existing clients. We're going to talk about leads and how to qualify them. Just because someone needs your assistance doesn't mean that they're going to be a perfect fit for you and for your business. I can't tell you how many times I, had that feeling in my gut, like this is not a right fit, but I need the money. So I signed them anyways. And it just exploded. And it's like, yeah, I should have listened to my intuition when I signed them. So it's about finding the leads and also qualifying the leads. We talk about expanding your services. So if you're starting with a single service, let's say it's general admin, it's email and email and calendar management, but then you notice actually that your clients need some assistance in a different area. So you learn a little bit and you understand more so that you can serve your clients in a deeper way. That way you keep your clients for longer and you retain them. Less turnover is really important in the virtual assistant world, or at least it was for my business. We've had long-term clients. My longest has been maybe almost 8 years now.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
And then we talk about referrals. So how to get those clients who love you to refer you to other clients. And that was a huge part of my growth, is like my first few clients referred me to more clients and they referred me to more clients, which really helps. And it takes that task off of your plate of like marketing your business, because you're doing it through your happy clients are the best referral.
Yes.
In fact, I think that's like a BBG statement.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's true.
Yeah, it is
like
true.
if someone refers you to someone and says they're absolutely awesome, like aren't you going to be more apt to sign with that person because someone has already had a really good experience with them?
Yes.
So that's like the basic core of the course. But then I have 2 bonus modules. One talks about like the business structure, and it offers advice of like the different business structure types. But then I always, recommend that you talk to someone in your specific area, because every state, every county is different and has different regulations. And then we have a mindset module, because a positive and growth mindset is going to get you everywhere. And something that I still work on now, because there are days where imposter syndrome sets in. You're like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. But also knowing that, like, yeah, I do know what I'm doing. It's just a way of like turning those negative thoughts to positive thoughts, or even just like making them subside so that the positive ones can come back out. So, I mean, that's my course in a nutshell. And it's a simple digital download. The 8 modules, they all have worksheets. So it's kind of self-paced, self-guided, but I am always available for supporting anyone who purchases the course. And I just want to see everyone succeed. And there's a lot more in the pipeline for growth in terms of more programs coming out. There's really exciting stuff that's happening.
That's so cool, Nicole. And I love that it just gives an opportunity for women to get started. It's such a great like stepping stone towards here's the learning that we can do together. Here are the ways you can start to put some things into practice. And then along the way, we'll grow and have more opportunities to work together or dive deeper into mindset or whatever it might be, just to help women really kind of, get their foot in the door and get started is so good. And I think sometimes that's the hardest part.
Exactly. When I was starting, I didn't know where to go. And there weren't as many online courses when I first got started 8 years ago. And there are a lot now. But this course specifically takes you through the steps that I wish I had 8 years ago when I was first getting started. And I think it's pretty valuable information.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah. I mean, everything you've shared already has been super valuable today. So I have no doubt the course is incredibly valuable for women that maybe want to dive into this level of work or want to leave what they're doing and create more of their own business and create more of their own offering. This is a great opportunity. And Nicole, I can't thank you enough for sharing just your heart, your perspective, your story, and just the incredible ways that you're serving moms and women. We need all the support we can get and all the encouragement we can get. And I really can't thank you enough for being here to share all that you've shared today. Really quickly, before we wrap up, I like to ask 2 quick questions at the end of my interviews related to just this topic of mental health. And you and I have talked about this in a variety of different ways, and you kind of mentioned it today, but mental health is really near and dear to my heart as a women's health coach. And I really want to empower women often to understand the importance of making sure that we're nurturing our inside out wellness, especially our mental and emotional well-being, because it's a key piece to how we feel in every facet of our life. So I'd love your perspective, Nicole, on why do you feel like sharing our stories when it comes to a topic like mental health or supporting women is so important for us?
So it's specifically for, mom entrepreneurs who are working from home by themselves, it gets very lonely.
Yeah.
And there's so many areas in which we can look and compare ourselves to other people. And I know we hear it all the time, but it's like everybody's highlight reels, but it's so true. Like, I don't think we understand really what's going on, under the surface. I think it's important to, take a step back and understand that. And this is something that you've told me many, many times is like, I am not alone and my feelings are valid, and they're not, I don't want to say they're not special, but they're not like unique. Like other people are feeling the same way. Yeah. And just hearing that and just hearing that like somebody else might resonate with my story or somebody else might relate to something that I'm going through makes you feel less alone.
Totally.
And it's funny, I'm just like connecting the dot here, but like I had gone through a lot of therapy after my husband's heart failure incident. And one of the things that we went through was just my constant feeling of being alone, life always taking something away from me. Like I was always going to be alone. And so just really like ingraining in my brain that I'm not alone, I'm not the only one going through something, really helps put my mind at ease and helps me understand that this too shall pass. Like this is not something that's going to last forever. And that there are people out there that can help support. Because for so long, like you just kind of internalize everything.
Yep.
It's like once you get it out and talking about things, it really puts, again, everything into perspective. And sometimes you just have to say it out loud and you're like, well, I know I felt that, but I say it out loud and it feels kind of silly now because it doesn't feel as heavy when it comes out your mouth as it does when it's like in your brain.
So good. And I appreciate you just sharing your authentic story, because I know for a fact that someone listening to this is going to relate to the heavy and hard of what you experienced and how that has changed how you view life and how you've decided to, completely pivot and change the way you're doing business. And to your point, Nicole, I think so often we can just put ourselves on an island and internalize things. And so it's so important to just remember that we aren't the only ones. And the more we share, the more we talk about our stories authentically, we get real and raw about what's actually happening in day-to-day life. It just normalizes what we feel. And we can really work through that together as we share. And so I'm just grateful for all the sharing you've done today. Last question, and then we'll kind of make sure everybody knows how to find you online. So one of the things I like to ask is about just kind of this concept of reminding yourself to take care of you as a busy mom, a busy business owner, a busy wife. And so do you have a favorite like quote or mantra, scripture, or anything that you lean on that helps you to remember to nurture yourself in the busyness of life?
My motto for as long as I can remember is just keep moving forward. And for me to just keep moving forward, it says what it is, right? But like in terms of everything in my life, if I can just keep taking the next step forward, it really helps. But in terms of like taking care of myself, we're still working on that. And I know I've been working on that with you. But the more that I am able to like implement small habits, like first it was drinking enough water, and then it was getting enough steps during the day, which I know was a huge, huge undertaking for me. Yeah. And now that I've been doing it, seems absolutely silly that I was like, I can't do 10,000 steps a day, because now it's like not a big deal. Yeah. But it's, I guess it goes back to the same thing of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like I can't be the best for my kids and my husband, the most important people in my life, if I am absolutely drained. So putting into perspective and then prioritizing is kind of where and then I try to put myself up there on the list, but it's understanding that like, I can't be the best version of myself for them if I'm not being the best version of myself for me first.
Yeah.
So that's just something that I'm constantly working on. And there are days where it gets away from me. But it's a work in progress. Right. And, every day is different, and we work towards, there's no such thing as perfection with self-care.
Right. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And like you said, every day is different, and that's okay. And every day you are trying to figure out how to show up for yourself in the midst of it. If it looks different, or if it feels different, or if you feel like for some reason it wasn't exactly what you needed, that's okay. It's that idea of continuing to move forward. I love that. Like no matter what, you're finding a way to continue to move forward and learn a little bit more every single day. And every day we wake up, all we can do is our best to try to fill our cups and do the best we can. Like at the end of the day, that's the best we can do, right? Exactly. So Nicole, thank you so much for everything today. You are amazing, my friend. I am so grateful for you. Before we wrap up, will you just share how people can find you online or get connected to you if they want to do your course or learn more about the work you do?
Yeah, so my website is mountain46.com for the virtual assistant agency. My course is at NicoleDeGrasse.com. And I don't know, will you have that in like show notes or something?
Yes.
I'm going to spell it out. Okay.
I will have everything in the show notes so you guys can connect with Nicole. If you want to learn more about her course, you want to learn more about Mountain 46, her agency, you just want to connect with her, tell her about how you connected with her story or anything else, feel free to head to the show notes to get all of her details, and hoping that you guys connect more with her because she is amazing. And Nicole, I can't thank you enough for being here today. So grateful for you, my friend.
Thank you, Erin. I am so grateful for you. And I'm so, grateful that we met last year, because you're just a joy and a light in my life. So thank you.
Ditto, my friend. Talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I know balancing time and energy can be a challenge, and I'm so proud of you for listening in and investing in your wellness journey. I feel incredibly grateful to connect with you and for the opportunity to share more knowledge, stories, and encouragement related to all things wellness. I would love to hear how this podcast has served you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify. Your support truly means the world to me and helps me reach more women just like you and me who are looking to transform their health from the inside out. Plus, when you share this episode with a friend, we invite more women in to learn alongside us. What a gift. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we know, the better we can do. For ourselves, for our families, and our future. Well done on taking the step towards a healthier, happier you. Until next week, stay empowered and stay well.